Hello, I'm Matej, and you're watching World Talks. Beginning of the year in Slovakia has been marked by two foreign trips. Prime Minister Fico alleged a luxurious excursion to Vietnam, and Slovakian lawmakers planned visit to Moscow. And to talk about the latest from Bratislava, we're joined by Matej Šimalčík, Executive Director of the Central European Institute of Asian Studies. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So let's start with a very straightforward question. Is Slovakia competing with Hungary to become Putin's closest ally within the EU?
It certainly seems so, since Prime Minister Robert Fico took over in Slovakia last year after the 2023 elections. With his aim to foster the all-azimuth foreign policy is certainly pandering increasingly to various forms of autocracy eastwards of Slovakia. Only last year, in the second half, we've seen two big trips by him, one to Moscow and before that to Beijing. And now, after being AWOL for almost 2 weeks, he's emerged in Vietnam, although the trip to Vietnam appears to be private in nature rather than an exercise of public office. But him being a prime minister, taking a vacation to Vietnam at the time when Slovakia also keeps frozen relations with Vietnam, it certainly sends a signal that Slovakia's foreign policy is increasingly aiming at fostering relations with global autocrats and abandoning the previous approach based on some sort of principled value-based foreign policy that was in place during the 2020-2023 election cycle. Pandering to Vladimir Putin and supporting Putin in various ways is, of course, something that is most visible right now. And in this sense, certainly Slovakia is turning increasingly similar to how Hungary is approaching the relationship with Russia. And it's no surprise that similarly to Hungary, Slovakia is also cooperating not just with Russia at this point, but also with countries that previously had also good times with Hungary, such as China, which was for the long time Hungary was its best friend in Europe. Now Slovakia is taking this place as well, but also other countries like Serbia as well, which don't really have the best track record on democracy and upholding human rights and being critical of Russian.
Let me interrupt you here and ask a bit more about this controversial trip to Vietnam. So as we already established, it's not purely a private holiday trip of Robert Fico. It has also some deeper meaning, that is to show the world that Slovakian approach to foreign politics has changed. But on the other hand, it has raised much controversies in Bratislava, not because of its hidden purpose, I guess, but because of its cost. So how much does it cost the Slovakian taxpayer?
Yeah, the costs are twofold, and the controversies are twofold. The first one that's most talked about is the costs of this trip, where it was publicized by Slovak media that just a single night in the hotel that the prime minister chose for his holiday costs around 6,000 euros per night. Which raises questions about whether he's actually able to afford that kind of trip based on his salary as a prime minister. And let's face it, this is a private trip still, so it's not a cost to the taxpayer necessarily, but there are these kind of questions that can the prime minister actually afford this kind of trip based on his public salary, or is this paid from some other sources, which raises questions about potential corruptions or attempts to influence decision making in Slovakia by various actors, so be it Vietnam or someone else. So this is the problem here. Secondly, the costs of the trip raise controversy also in the current context. That's the trip being so expensive, it is taking place at the time where the austerity measures announced by Fico's government are taking effect. Just as of 1st January, Slovakia is experiencing a hike in the value-added tax from the original 20% to 23% for most goods and services, which will be raising costs for ordinary people in Slovakia. And this is adding to the controversy that while people in Slovakia are forced by the government to spend more and are becoming poorer based on this, the prime minister is taking a lavish trip to Vietnam. But then there is also the second controversy related to foreign policy and how a relationship between Slovakia and Vietnam is evolving and has been evolving under consecutive Fico's administration in the past.
Right. Now, how to interpret the lawmakers' planned trip to Moscow? What are they trying to achieve there, apart from showing Vladimir Putin that they like his ideas?
These are MPs that are associated with the government coalition, right? So what they are doing is, in essence, a continuation of Fico's own policy towards Russia. Let's remember that most of these MPs are associated with political parties that have an electorate deeply favorable of Russia. So by taking this trip, they're also taking some symbolic action towards their own voters. Showing them that they are trying to normalize relations with Russia, and most of the coalition parties in the government were actually running in the election with this kind of promise of not getting involved in the warfare in Ukraine, of protecting Slovak citizens, of normalizing relationship with Russia, and they are if they are not able to deliver actually any of these promises, because it's impossible in the current situation, they are taking at least this kind of a symbolic action to assuage the electorate. At the same time, we have a portion of lawmakers for whom a trip to Moscow and being aligned with Russia and showing pro-Russian sentiments is actually ideologically aligned with their own personality. So these politicians themselves have pro-Russian views. So for them, it appears to be a normal trip, and they don't see a reason why they should not be taking it. But this is a very important aspect of it, because it's motivating these large departures in the Slovak foreign policy in the past year and a half that were taking place ever since Prime Minister Robert Fico took over government in Slovakia.
Mm-hmm. Now, lastly, about gas. So Ukraine's decision to hold the transit of Russian gas to Slovakia has been met with understandable criticism from Robert Fico. No, but the question is, will he make his threats real and take some retaliatory measures against Ukraine? And the second question, very much aligned with this one, is how is Slovakia's economy reacting to Ukraine's decision, and could it lead to a major crisis, as portrayed by Robert Fico?
When it comes to gas, my understanding is that over the past few years, Slovakia has grown less dependent on Russian gas than it was in the past. So there were measures taken to minimize some of the exposure towards Russian gas, but of course they were not removed 100%. So there might be some sort of economic fallback coming out of this, but it should not be overly critical, as there are alternative ways how Slovakia can obtain its gas, although they might be more expensive compared to Russian gas. But that's obviously some sort of cost that needs to be taken into account and borne, due to the fact that Ukraine has a legitimate right to protect itself and make sure that Russia is not receiving profits from a sale of gas, which are financing the war machine used by Russia.
So this will probably not rock the government in Bratislava. Matej Šimalčík, Executive Director of the Center of the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good evening.
You too. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more news and features here on TVP World.